Hi everyone, thanks so much for listening to another episode of Dogman Encounters Radio. I'm Vic Cundiff and I'll be your host for the show. Before we bring on tonight's guest, if you've had a Dogman encounter and would like to speak with me about it, whether in private or on the show, please go to dogmenencounters.com and submit a report. I'd love to hear from you. If you've had a Sasquatch sighting and would like to be a guest on Bigfoot Eyewitness Radio, please go to bigfooteyewitness.com and submit a report. All right, let's bring on tonight's guest. Tonight's guest is Joanna. Joanna, welcome to the show.
Happy to be here.
Well, it's great having you. Thanks for coming on. Joanna, please give us a brief bio on yourself.
I am 29 years old. I've always grown up in the country, and I just got back traveling a couple of different states.
Wow, what states did you go to?
Missouri, Tennessee, and North Carolina, and then a couple little ones in between, but briefly.
Wow, that sounds like a good trip. I don't get out and about. I don't get to go anywhere anymore. I'm too busy, so I'm jealous. I'm really jealous.
It was a first time going on vacation in a very long time, so I was very excited about it.
Well, I don't blame you. Like I said, I'm glad that you got to go. When you had your encounters, you thought you were the only person who had ever encountered a dogman. How long did it take you to find out that that wasn't the case?
A couple years, actually. I didn't tell anyone because I was like, no one's going to believe this, especially my family. Then a couple years later, I told a friend about it.
Yeah, it's really a shame that people who see dogmen have to worry about things like that, but they do. I get it. I totally understand why you did. Both of your encounters happened at your parents' house almost 15 years ago. Do they still live there? And if they do, how concerned are you for their safety?
They still do live there, and I'm not really concerned. They've never noticed anything, and nothing's really bothered us physically. It's always just been me.
Lucky you, huh?
Right?
Yeah, I'd say so. Do they accept the fact that dogmen are out there, or do they think it's all a joke?
I don't think they've ever actually even heard of it. I've never brought it up to their attention, but they're not big believers in anything like that. They're just your normal, everyday Christian people. Nothing exciting really going on in their lives like that.
Do you have any concerns that if something happens to them and you never told them about your encounters, that you'd feel guilty about that?
Probably, but at the same time, I know if I told them, they would never believe me and nothing would change. Like, the house that they live in, they built like over 20 years ago. They're never going to leave it unless something like that actually happened. So me telling them, they would probably just be like, you need to be medicated. So I've just never said anything.
Yeah, if that's the case, I don't blame you then. It really is a shame that you have to worry about things like that, but with people like that are so set in their ways, it would be a waste of your time to try and warn them. How long did you live there after you had that last encounter that you're going to tell us about tonight before you moved out?
About 4 years.
Wow, that had to be a long 4 years.
It was.
Yeah, I'll bet. You didn't tell your parents about your encounters, but did you ever tell any of your other relatives about them? And if you did, how'd they respond?
I told my sister about it, and she believes me. She's had her own weird encounters that she cannot explain, but she's never seen anything to what I've seen.
Well, like I said before, lucky you, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a shame. It's got to be that way. From what I understand, you had been dealing with the dogman. You had those two encounters that you're going to tell us about tonight for years before you actually saw it for the first time. Please expand on that for us without revealing any of the details of your encounters, Joanna.
When we were really little, my aunt and uncle would go out of the country for vacations, like all the time, for like a month at a time. And they had a very small daughter. She was like around like 6 or something like that. And so they would always just drop her off, and it was fairly normal. And one day, it was about probably close to around midnight or something like that, and my cousin, she came bursting into my room freaking out. And I was like, what is going on? And she's like, there's a big dog on the back deck, and he's been watching me, and I finally came and got you. And I was like, what are you talking about, a big dog? Like, I just thought our neighbor's lab or something got out. And she's like, nope, he's about twice the size, and he has really weird legs. Like, they're just really weird, and he has red eyes. And I was like, you're 6, you're crazy. So I went down, and I never saw anything. I turned on the light on the deck. There was nothing out there, so I just chalked it up to her being a small child and freaking out because she was sleeping alone.
Wow, that's a shame that it had to be that way. I can understand why you responded the way you did, but I guess it is ironic that down the road you would actually have 2 encounters of your own. I don't want to be that guy to say it, but I guess in a way it was kind of like karma that you did wind up having those 2 encounters.
Yeah, kinda.
Yeah, in a way it was, I guess. You say that you're not afraid of the dark, but that you do have trouble going out at night under certain circumstances. Please tell us more about that.
Pretty much, I don't go out in the dark at my parents' house. I'm fine walking through the city at night, completely by myself. The bad areas, they never really bothered me. Nothing's ever really bothered me except for going out at dark around my parents' house, even on the front porch. Like, I can go out on the front porch, but if I hear anything, I'm going back inside. But I refuse to go in the backyard at night once it's dark.
You said you won't go out after dark, but have you been into the woods since you had that second encounter, even during the daylight hours?
I have once.
Ooh, how'd that go?
It was probably about 4 years ago or something like that. It was the first time I'd been back there, and I was with about 4 others, and I had been telling them, or they had seen the woods next to my parents' house like a bunch of times and stuff, coming over the years for having like cookouts and stuff. And they were like, let's go explore the woods. And I didn't want to tell them, like, no. So we went out there and we explored the little area, and no one thought anything of it. But I actually found a really big paw print out there.
Let's go explore the woods. Famous last words.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, I'd say. All right, Joanna, please tell us about your encounters now. Give us every last detail that comes to mind.
All right. So when I was about 15 years old or something like that, I was a normal rebellious teenager. So I was getting in trouble all the time. And when I would get in trouble to like escape my dad, because he would pretty much was the enforcer in the house, my mom was a big pushover. So dad always had to be the one to punish us, whatever it may be. And so whenever I knew he was going to be mad at me, I would run off into this wooded area that butts right up against my parents' property. The only thing in between them is this really large levee. It's about 15, 20 feet high. And I was out there one day. I got in trouble for who knows what. And I was just exploring, and there's this little area inside of it that is fenced off with barbed wire. And it always fascinated me because, like, what could be in there that they needed to put up barbed wire to keep either anything out or something in? I don't know, but I want to know. I'm a very curious person. Still am. I'd still probably do it if I didn't have this experience. I'd still probably go in there like today. But I went in there, I snuck through the gate because I was very small, and there was this little path. And so I followed it, and there was this weird little small building. Like, this building could have fit in our living room. And it was just really creepy. The door was metal. I don't know if it was aluminum or what, but it actually has like puncture marks and scratch marks all over it. And I was like, well, that's kind of really creepy. And underneath the building, there are these two really large cement pits. We have no idea what they are, but they're at least about 12 foot deep. And then going horizontally across the bottom of the pits, going through both of them, connecting, I don't know how far underground it goes, but I know it goes underground past the pits. And then at the corner of the pit on the right side, there's this tunnel that goes straight up. And like both the tunnel that goes up and the one that goes horizontally, they're both at least 5 feet or so wide, like 4 or 5 feet, I don't know. But I wanted to know what was in those tunnels because I was like, that's kind of really weird to have that big of a tunnel. I don't know what it is. So I climbed a tree and I was just looking in it. And then all of a sudden, I just hear this weird scratching noise. And I was like, well, that's kind of weird. But it sounded really big because my first thought was, it's a rat. It was not a rat. And so I watch it for a couple seconds. And then I just see this big black mass just shoot through the tunnel. And I couldn't really see much, but I could see like the shape. I could see like a pointed snout. I could see little ears and the reddish streaks it was leaving from the eyes. It was like time slowed down, and it smelled weird. And it smelled like dog pee and like wet fur. And it was like, and kind of like moss. It was like it punched me in the face when it shot through, like probably like the air going up that tunnel. My face is right above it, which makes sense, but it freaked me out. And I dropped out of that tree and ran through the pass and slipped through the gate and got to the top of this levee. And like, I stopped because I heard it howl. And it was the creepiest, most disturbing thing I've ever heard in my life. It was like really low, and it lasted about like 10 seconds, and it freaked me out. And I took off and got to the house. Like, I've never ran so fast in my life. But I got up there and I locked the door because I don't know what else to do. And I'm like, okay, I'm at home base. Like, I'm fine. You can't touch me. I made it to home. Like, I'm good now. And so I thought it was over. And so I was just going about my day like, that was a weird encounter. Like, I didn't really think too much of it. But later that night, I was laying on our couch and I was watching TV. It was probably around 11:30 or midnight or something like that. And it was storming really bad. So it'd be like pitch black, and then all of a sudden the whole sky's lit up with like a huge strike of lightning. And then I just felt like I was being watched, like super, super strongly. And so I sat there for a couple minutes before I could like move again. And then our couch was right almost right under the window. And I finally looked up, and when I did, the lightning struck and it like illuminated everything, and I just saw this massive, massive head in the window. Like, it took up the entire width of the window, just about. Like, I think there was about an inch or so on either side. And I saw, like, it looked like a giant dog. Like, there was the long snout, the pointy ears, and the same reddish orange eyes that I'd seen earlier that day. And it was just staring at me. And I probably stared back at it for a good 5 minutes before I could do anything. And the only thing I could muster was to revert to childhood and pull the blanket over my head so I could stop staring at it. And I stayed like that until the morning.
The next morning, what happened?
The next morning, I thought I was insane, because there's no way I could have imagined this twice in a day. The first time, I was like, my brain's playing tricks on me. But the second time, when he was actually on our back deck staring at me, I was like, there's something wrong. Like, something's not right about this. Something's not normal, and I don't know what it is. I don't know how to find out what it is. I don't even know who to talk to, because where he was, if I was standing up, I would have been eye level with him. And it looked like he was on all fours.
Did your parents ever get the feeling or the vibe that something wasn't quite right with you, that something had happened to you?
No, they thought I was just a weird teenager.
Yeah, I guess that's how a lot of parents would have responded. And I've got to address this. I was going to let this go, but I think I should address this. Let me get this right. You see an area, you say, wow, that area looks awfully spooky. I want to go check it out. Joanna.
I was a very curious person. I still am. I'm still like that to this day. I love anything creepy, anything supernatural. Like, if you tell me that you had this crazy experience at this one house, like, I'm going to do whatever I can do to get in there and check it out myself. And then this time it came to bite me in the almost literally.
Yeah, it did, unfortunately. Yeah, that wouldn't have been good if it had either. When you looked down into that tunnel and saw the Dogman, how close were you to it?
The bottom of the tunnel was probably about 12 feet down or so, or at least it looked like it. I could have been exaggerating. It might be 8 feet, it might be 12 feet. I'm not completely sure. And it would have been on all fours, so however tall it is, from about 12 feet down. So probably about a good, 8 feet away from it.
Oh, so the answer to that question is too close for comfort then.
Yeah, it was too close for comfort, because fur was actually like coming up through the tunnel.
Wow, yeah, that's not good. I'm a little confused on this. Did it ever seem to realize that you were right there looking at it?
In the tunnel, I don't know. I think so, since I could hear it howl like as soon as I got away. I'm not sure. I hope not. But I know it knows that I was over there, because it followed me all the way home.
Yeah, well, it definitely knew that you were there if it followed you home and was looking at you through the window. Considering the fact it paid you a visit that night, do you think that meant it had more human-like intelligence than animal-like, or do you think that it followed you home that way doesn't signify anything unusual about its intelligence or character?
I don't know if I would say that it had human-like intelligence. It very well could have, and I would 100% believe that it would. But it was definitely more intelligence than you would see, like, in an animal. Like, you could just look in its eyes and just tell that it has, like, so much, like, intelligence to it.
That fits, because they're definitely very intelligent, unfortunately. If someone who had never heard of a dogman before asked you to tell them what a dogman is and what they look like, what would you tell them?
Well, I know that there are multiple types, so pretty much I would ask them, like, how descriptive do you want me to be and how long do you want to sit down? But the one that I had seen would be the one that I would preferably describe, because I'd seen it. I haven't seen any of the other things. But just big, black, red eyes, and intimidating. I'm not one to be intimidated. I never have been. I did armed security for 3 years. And as a small female, you run into your own brand new problems. I've run into gunfire. I've run into situations where I've been like, I'm going to get my butt kicked. But this time, no, I would not run towards it. I would run towards anything but that. Like, it just oozed intimidation from it.
That's understandable, because that's what they do. Well, it's about time for us to get out of here, Joanna, but before we do you have any closing comments you'd like to share?
Don't mess with one if you can help it.
Well, that's concise. Very to the point and concise, but good advice nonetheless. Joanna, I want to thank you so much for coming on and sharing the details of those encounters with us. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Thanks again so much. Have a great night. If you've had a Dogman encounter of your own and would like to speak with me, whether in private or on the show, please go to dogmenencounters.com and submit a report. I'd love to hear from you.